Hey Betsy, how are you?
I'm great, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much. And thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to do this. We've been trying to connect and do this for some time. So this is
Yeah,
great.
my pleasure. I'm glad the stars aligned that we could do this today.
Right. So um, we have the COVID-19 crisis going on right now, and it's affecting so many people. What are some of the things, I know you have some thoughts regarding that, revolving around nutrition and whole food plant-based lifestyle. What are some of the things that you might want to share with some people?
Well, what I personally focus on, and of course anybody that I care about, that I love, that I can talk to, that I work with, I really am focusing on what I can control. And so, of course, it's so important for us to keep ourselves informed and follow the guidance of the CDC, which is my resource for information, and physically distance and do all the things that will help keep others safe and keep ourselves safe. But I think there's a lot of power in what we can do to arm ourselves to defend ourselves from potentially coming in contact with the virus, but also if we come in contact with the virus, that our immune system is prepared to defend us, and that's what it's there to do. So, eating a whole food plant based diet, which is something I've done for years, is something that gives me a lot of confidence that if I come in contact with the virus or if I am infected with the virus, that my immune system is adequately prepared to defend me and my physical health. It's kind of like warfare, right? If you don't have the right military personnel and the right strategy and the right equipment in place, um, you leave yourself open to defeat. And I just eat as many fruits and vegetables as possible because they literally have compounds in them that will seek and destroy viruses and bacteria in your body. And your circulatory system is the transportation mode to deliver those important defenses, your T cells, which are your immunity cells, throughout your body to scavenge for these invaders and to destroy them. So, whole food plant based eating and eating lots of fresh fruits and vegetables and greens and vitamin C rich food and a lot of fiber is really important. Eating a lower fat diet, a low fat diet, minimal, no oil is really important because high fat foods actually, um, they kind of, I don't want to say they immobilize, but they lessen the ability of your T cells to actually target these viruses. And a good resource for that is PCRM.org, Physicians
Yeah,
Committee for Responsible Medicine. Dr. Barnard has been talking about this.
wonderful.
And the other thing is stress, because if we are in a state of stress because of everything that's going on and we're impacted differently, right? Some of us were fortunate enough that our jobs haven't been impacted, our income hasn't been impacted, our family members are safe and healthy, and we're just inconvenienced right now, wildly inconvenienced. And some of us are really in the thick of it, and we're dealing with some real life issues. So we have a different level of experience, and how we are living through this pandemic. But we have a lot of ability to manage our stress levels, particularly the stress hormone cortisol. And when you are in a highly elevated state of stress, and the amygdala, which is in the back of your brain, releases that chemical into your body, um, your immune system is compromised. And that's like a whole discussion we could get into around that. But so I think it's key to really nourish yourself and really try to manage your nervous system and stay as calm as possible with whatever method you feel comfortable with.
Right. That's great. And I'm so on the same page with you. It's about self-empowering. It's about putting the power back because we have a lot of control over our health. And I think when you watch the media and when you see all this stuff, you feel powerless to a degree. Yeah, they'll tell they're informing us to put masks on and to keep 6 foot distance. But when it comes to nutrition, immunity, stress, all of those things, nobody's talking about that. So I think
You are
it's
so right, Rob. I mean, we don't hear about this enough. We
right.
just don't. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're talking about it. Thank you.
And the same with you, Betsy. And so share people. We should have gave some information. What is your background? What are your credentials? What because you've been doing this stuff for quite a while now.
Yeah, I mean, so my background, okay, let's rewind for the personal perspective, and I'll kind of give you the storyline very quickly. You know, I've always been kind of sensitive around meat. I never really liked to eat meat with bones in it. And, I just had like this sense that um, it really just was inherently not in alignment with who I was. So I kind of drifted, back and forth with eating meat, not eating meat, eating less meat. And I was what I like to call a meat eating vegetarian, somebody who really had like an internal knowing that this wasn't really um, cohesive with my being, but I did it anyway because society told me that's what we do. That's tradition, right? So I had this big epiphany on January 1st, 2012, and I saw a movie and it just clicked in my brain and about how animals suffer in our whole food system, and I said that's it. I am not eating meat again. And then I
Was
had
it
to go on
Forks
an
Over Knives?
no, it actually was the strangest movie that it's a movie you would never imagine would have flipped the switch. It was about Temple Grandin's life. And it was not like a pro-vegetarian, pro-vegan movie at all. It's quite the opposite. But she's the woman who invented the conveyor belt system that allows cattle to get into slaughter more efficiently. And she's a fascinating person. But in telling the story, I really saw that that invention brought on industrial factory farming. And really, even though her intention was maybe out of compassion to the animals to make their experience to slaughter better, in my personal opinion, it allowed for us to be able to mass slaughter and increased the amount of meat consumption, which has led to our own health epidemic in terms of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. So that was my switch point. But what I there was a precursor to this, like 4 or 6 weeks before that moment happened, where I watched public I came across a PBS special on Dr. Furman
Yes.
talking about his nutritarian diet.
Was it the 3 steps to incredible health
Something
on
like
PBS?
that. It was that or Eat to Live. I
Okay.
can't remember, but I really got that message of, oh my gosh, I really need to start arming myself with a lot of fruits and vegetables and really step away from the animal products. So leading up to that moment, January 1st, 2012, I was really trying to make sure I was upping my fruits and vegetables every day. So my body was already starting to come into alignment with something different when I had that flip moment. But then that year, 2012, I kind of struggled. I ate a lot of fruits and vegetables, but because I decided I wasn't going to eat meat anymore and hadn't made the connection to dairy and eggs yet, I was eating more dairy and eggs, which led to, I believe, it was the culprit that led to brain fog, weight gain, and then all of a sudden I was having these urinary tract infections that I'd never had before. So I was thinking this, yet I had a sense of peace. Like I was so happy with my decision to not eat meat because on a personal level, whether you call that spiritual or sense of well-being, I felt very peaceful. But yet I was dealing with kind of like not feeling very good. So I just dove down the rabbit hole and started following Dr. Furman's work a little bit more. And then that led me to other resources. I watched Forks Over Knives, Food Matters, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Like I went in down, the rabbit hole with documentaries and educating myself. And I moved into a vegan diet and then ultimately a whole food plant-based diet, right? So it was kind of a gradient, um, transition from vegetarian to whole food plant-based eating.
Right.
And if I had somebody around like you and I to to really guide me, and it probably would have been an easier, quicker process, but I didn't. And 8 years ago, it was a whole different story. It's amazing how far plant-based eating has come in a few short years. I would say even just the last 3 years, right?
It really is. It really is. We're seeing this whole movement. It's finally now progressing to the point where you're seeing sales of plant-based milks and 680 some percent increase of just plant-based milks last year alone. And oat milk is the number one selling plant-based milk. 41% of households now in America drink a plant-based milk, which is
Wow.
incredible. 41%, almost half of the people now have switched to plant-based milk. So this is a trend, and it's just going to keep continuing to grow. It's incredible, and it's so wonderful to be a part of this experience, these life-changing things that happen, as you know, Betsy.
It really is. And I'm so glad that I was at the space that I was. I was like 2 years into my own journey. And then 2014 hit, and that was like a year I will never forget. That's going to go down in the record books with 2020. It was my own personal year of transformation, everything breaking down so that something new could come forward. It was, it started off the year with my mom living with us because she was living in the country 2 hours away. It's a really cold winter in 2014. She had all these autoimmune issues, fibromyalgia, arthritis, COPD, diabetes, major pain, I said, Mom, I kidnapped her and said, you are coming to live with us this winter. And I was caring for her. And then my dog was diagnosed with lymphoma. My sister had a heart attack at age 50. And in the middle, as that was all happening, then I left and I stayed with her for 2 weeks during her recovery. And I'm nursing my mother and I'm nursing my sister and I'm seeing my health transition. And I'm like, this is the path. This is the way I can help them with this way of eating. So by the time my mom left my home 3 or 4 months later, it was like, when you forget to water a flower or a plant and it all like shrivels up and it looks like it's going to die.
For sure.
And then you give it water and it just blooms.
Comes back to life.
That's what happened with my mom while she was living with me.
Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful.
She was eating the food that I was serving her. She didn't have a choice. I had her captive. And her pain improved immensely. Her well-being, her mobility, her digestion, her breathing. And so I really worked with my sister, who was kind of like, yeah, I'll eat what you're serving me, but I'm going to do what I want to do. And then my mom went home and she tried to maintain this way of eating, but she kind of went back to her old ways.
Sure.
In the meantime, I'm still working my corporate job, and I decided this was also fascinating, that I went through the IIN program, Institute for International integrative nutrition, not international nutrition. IIN is out of New York. And it's a great certification for holistic health coaching experience. We studied over 100 dietary theories. And in studying all those theories, I'm more than ever, I'm convinced that a whole food plant-based diet is the way to go. And I learned a lot of different healing modalities. And then I decided I was going to move on from my corporate world and I really wanted to do health coaching. Then 2016 rolls around and my mom, who went back to her old way of living, and my sister, who never really adopted a whole food plant-based eating, that was another year of crisis. My sister had to have open heart surgery because the stents that they put in, the 5 stents that they put in after her heart attack, and all of the medications and the low carb way of eating that they recommended, because she's also a type 1 diabetic, led to the need for open heart surgery in 2016. And at the same time, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer.
Oh my goodness.
So Rob, 2016 was another year for the books because I spent it in hospitals with my sister with her cardiac issues, with my mom with her cancer issues. Up to that point, neither one of them adopted this way of eating. My mom ended up dying in my home. It was very, very painful experience, although I was very blessed that I could share a lot of what I did with her. And at the tail end, I'm coming to the end of the story here. At the tail end of all of this, 2016 comes and goes, 2017 rolls in. My mom has now passed away. My sister is now looking at a second open heart surgery because now her bypass was clogged because she kept the same lifestyle that got her into, the first bypass. And in a moment of vulnerability, I totally took advantage of her. We're grieving my mother, and she's facing another open heart surgery. And anybody that's ever had that knows how unpleasant it is. And I convinced her to give it a shot, give a whole food plant-based diet a shot before having the second open heart surgery. Now, because she was so sick on 18 medications a day, heart disease, a very brittle type 1 diabetic, a laundry list of complications, just say they were a lot. I mean, she was taking 18 prescription pills a day, so you can figure out that, every body system was impacted. She adopted a whole food plant-based diet, but the first 30 days she went to True North Medical Center, and I don't know if you're familiar with True North, Dr. Goldhammer, Dr. Clapper, and she was medically monitored as she transitioned for the first 30 days. And then when she came home after that, I coached her. And she was already off like 6 or 7 pills within just a few weeks. Flash forward just a few months later, within I would say maybe even 3 months, but just medically documented by month 4, she was off most of her medications except for one cardiac med. And of course, she will always take insulin because she's type 1. But she had a nuclear stress test and her arteries were everything was open. All that plaque was so dissipated that they said, okay, you don't need the surgery now, but let's check back in. So she checks in with her cardiologist a few months later. And when she walks in the door, she's like, what happened to you? Because he had lost a whole bunch of weight and looked amazing. And because he was so inspired by the results that she got from, transitioning to a plant-based diet, he went and did the Dr. Clapper program with his wife, and he transitioned and he got himself off of cardiac medication, the cardiologist, and lost like 30 pounds.
That's so cool.
And then they did another stress test and they're like, you do not need this surgery. Like, your heart looks great. Your blood pressure is great. Your cholesterol is great. I'm taking you off your last cardiac med. And so my sister is, like she says, she's not just happier than she was before. She's happy for the first time in her life because she was diagnosed with diabetes at age 15 and has been having health complications ever since, including, she dealt with a lot of depression and anxiety, and she's off of all of those meds too. And her diabetes is in more control than it's ever been in her entire life, eating a high carb, low fat, whole food, plant-based diet.
Isn't that amazing? And it's just like we get the wrong information. We're told to stay away from carbs. They're not good for you. It's just the opposite. Carbs give you energy. We need those, but we need the unrefined whole food carbs that come from plants.
Yeah. It's the food.
It's the food. Doctor, help me out. Who said it? It's the food.
McDougall.
Clapper, was it Clapper, has it posted in his office. I seen the picture right in his office. He has a plaque that says it's the food.
You know what? He coined it. I think McDougall maybe borrowed it from him, but it is Dr. Clapper. I love Dr. Clapper. It is the food, and it is so amazing that it goes back to the beginning of our conversation, right? About empowering yourself, about self-empowered wellness, that it's like literally under our nose, like our plate, right? It's right there.
And that's what I wanted to touch on. When you're telling your story about your family members, all these family members that had these health issues, which are primarily a result of our Western diet. They don't have to happen. And, we have, I mentioned this in another one of my videos, we have the power now. We have the information. We have the technology. We have the studies. We have all this research. We have all the tools and these incredible foods like never before. So we have all the things we need in order to empower ourselves and empower our health. We just have to get this information out to people and untwist the misinformation that the public is giving to us. And that's why this is so wonderful doing these types of interviews with people like yourself, Betsy.
Yeah, it is. It's great that you're doing this, Rob. It really is, because you never know. I mean, if one person sees this video that needs to see it and a light bulb goes off, a life could be really. And I spent so much time in hospitals, and I saw the disconnect between, and no disrespect to the medical profession, there are amazing people that really helped us along in our journey with my mom and with my sister. But the system, the way it's designed, is to it's a sick care system, not a health care system. And the treatment is always surgery or meds after you're sick. And I had conversations with the oncologist, with the cardiologist about nutrition, and I was completely shut down. No,
just goes in one ear out the other.
Oh yeah, and the crap that was being fed. I took pictures along the journey of I call it. You might have to bleep this, but chemical shitstorm. Sorry, said it. That's what they feed people in the hospitals. And in some hospitals, you have the ability to order a good plant-based meal. Most hospitals, you do not. And, that experience in 2016, and then watching my sister's life literally be saved, because I'm not even sure she would be alive right now if she hadn't made this decision. And it's going on 3 years now. Her plant-based journey will be 3 years in June. But I decided that I wanted to get this information out like you do. And I became certified with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine to be a Food for Life instructor on the heels of all of this. So I really added that to my health coaching because I teach workshops where I get to share the evidence-based information all of the science and the knowledge and experience over 30 years that PCRM has, and their team of physicians, nurses, dietitians, and scientists, um, in a great workshop curriculum. So I get to share all that, but also I cook for people in the workshops, and then they get to eat the food. And that's really where the aha moment comes, is when people try the food and they like it. And they think, well, I can go home and do this. And so what I always encourage people to do is, you know, just commit to it for 21 days.
Right.
There's so many programs out there. There's so many free programs. Um, the Vegan Kickstart PCRM program is free. It's wonderful. It's online. You sign up, you get recipes, you get videos, you get all the support. And there's so many different versions of them out there with the plant-based doctors, various groups. And I would encourage people to really align themselves with the evidence-based programs versus the lifestyle vegan programs. Because there's a big difference between vegan and plant-based. I mean, they're pretty much all taking the animal foods off the plate. But we're talking highly nutritious, whole food, plant-based way of eating. That is the healing way of eating. And it's also delicious.
It is. It's fantastic because you learn all these new foods, your taste buds change, and you start craving this food. You realize kind of like what you've been missing out on. And you're right, because if you're vegan, that doesn't necessarily equal health, because you have to learn to replace the foods that you're giving up. If you don't replace the meat, the dairy, the cheese, the eggs, those are highly concentrated sources of protein and calories. And if you are not replacing them with beans and carbs and avocados and foods that are rich sources of those things, you're going to be hungry and you're not going to succeed, as you know, Betsy. So it's important to share this information. You've got a couple groups. I know you're actively involved in this this whole plant-based movement, and you've got a couple groups. One is Veg Setter, right?
Yeah, that is my page, and that's also my business. Veg Setter is my Facebook page. Vegsetter.com is my website. Yeah.
Awesome. Love
And
it.
then a group. I do have an online Facebook group. It's a private group um, that is
Which is
Forks and Fingertips. And Forks is, if you've seen the movie Forks Over Knives, you know, we're talking about whole food, plant-based eating. Fingertips is, I am also an EFT practitioner. That's emotional freedom technique. And that's another self-empowered wellness modality that addresses stress and personal peace and releasing of trauma. And that is using the meridians in the body, the Chinese acupressure system, and it is refined into a very modern kind of practice that the best way to describe it is psychological acupuncture or acupressure, where you use, you know, affirmations and the release of negative emotions to be able to access positive emotions while you're tapping on various points on the body. And so that's the fingertips part of the Forks and Fingertips group. And the way I have come to practice this lifestyle. And the other thing that tapping really helps with, which is why I was initially interested in offering this to my clients and my students, is that it helps with cravings. It helps release food cravings.
yes.
So while you're transitioning and you're missing your cheeseburger and your body is, you know, kind of going through withdrawal, which could happen because, you know, there's a physiological component to that, but there's also an emotional component to it because we can become emotionally addicted to certain ways of eating and certain foods. So using the tapping really helps to reduce cravings.
And I'm familiar with it. I've heard about EFT, not as much as you are, but I've heard about it too. So that's a great thing also. And
Yeah.
PCRM, it's just so wonderful the work that you're doing with them, Betsy, and it's just an honor to be able to speak with somebody who is working with them and that organization, because it truly is amazing. I just, man, so you could go to, it's pcrm.org, right?
Right.
And the work of Neil Bernard, and it's Dr. Clapper is also a part of that organization, right? Is it Clapper?
Not
I'm
officially.
sorry. Who
No.
else? Neil Bernard, and who else are the organization leading that?
Well, it's Dr. Barnard.
Yeah,
Um, and then there are a lot of well, like Dr. Barnard is like one of the major rock stars of the plant-based movement, right? So, like literally, he's a rock star. He is a musician too, along with Dr. Furman and Dr. Clapper, and they all support one another and their work, but they're all a little bit different in their focus in the plant-based community, and I mean, he's been at it just like Dr. Furman. These doctors have been doing this research for over 30 years. This is nothing new.
that's right.
This has been proven time and time again. There are, wouldn't you dare to say millions of people have been able to heal themselves through nutrition
Oh
at
my
this point?
gosh. Absolutely. And you, when you were talking about your family and your family members and all of these things that happen where the arteries start opening up, and you no longer need the bypass surgery and stuff like that. This isn't just what happened to you, your family, myself. I haven't had the heart issues, but I've had life-changing things happen. But the point is, it's happening to so many people. There's hundreds, thousands of people who have the same story to share.
Yes, and then there's great documentaries to watch now, if people want to get started on their journey. And the big one last year was Game Changers, and that really, spoke to the athletes and men really because of the protein, misconception, and that you can't be strong and muscular. And you may have talked about this, on your channel before. And then there was What the Health. That's an amazing movie that came out in 2017, and Forks Over Knives. So, I mean, like, if people want, like, there's people have more time than they typically have right now as we're going
Right.
through this pandemic where we've all been grounded, right? I mean, I would really encourage people who are curious or considering giving this lifestyle a try to start there, right? I mean, all these movies are on Netflix, and if you have Netflix, they're free.
Yes, I love that. And you are so right, Betsy. This is the perfect time. No better time than now. Not only can you learn this information, but then you can help arm yourself from the coronavirus. I mean, and learn these things that can change your life for the rest of your life. Now,
Can,
do
can
it
we
now.
can we talk about that a little bit? Arming
For
yourself.
sure.
Now, this is something that I'm sure Dr. Furman is talking about. Um, Dr. Barnard is doing like almost like live broadcasts pretty much on a daily basis and giving updates. But they're looking at the curve of when the virus is going to peak, and we have time. We have time. It's like 2 to 4, 5, 6 weeks, depending on what part of the country that you live in, that this is really going to peak. And, one of the underlying risk factors that really make you more susceptible, not only to contract, your body receiving the virus and then it taking hold into your system, but also being able to defend against the virus, are diabetes, type 2 diabetes in particular, because, that is something that's totally lifestyle related, whereas you cannot reverse type 1 diabetes at this point, but you can certainly improve it. And high blood pressure. So if you have blood pressure issues, if you have diabetes, if you are overweight, those are all going to put you at higher risk. And you have got time. You could do a 21-day program, a kickstart. Now, you could start this now, and you could lower your risk factor. we've got time. Because let's face it, we're most of us are going to get this virus. That's what they're telling us. So if we're believing what we're being told, most of us will get the COVID-19. Some of us won't even know we've had it for whatever reason, because our immune system just attacked it and developed the antibody, and we didn't even know we were sick. Some of us will get most of us will get a mild form of it. But the people that we're seeing, most of them, I know there's some outlying instances where they can't really, put together why someone who was younger and seemingly healthy contracted the more severe form of the virus. But you've got time. I mean, we have seen people reverse type 2 diabetes in a matter of weeks. We have seen people heal from high blood pressure in a matter of days to weeks.
Yes.
So this should be your motivation to do this now. There's never been a better time.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Betsy, I know you have another commitment and you have to, we have to wrap this up, but it's so wonderful to talk to you today. And thank you so much for doing this interview. This is about helping other people. And if you liked the interview, please subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, because this is about helping others, especially in this particular time right now, in this crisis that we're faced with. So love the work you're doing. And, check out our Facebook groups, Betsy's and Veg Setter. And yeah, awesome. All
It
right.
has been a pleasure. Thank you for all you're doing, Rob. I really appreciate that. And, you and I are both kind of in like the Chicago, Milwaukee metro area. So, who knows?
Hopefully we can meet up sometime at,
Yeah.
some convention or something
Or
like that.
maybe a food for life class that we could offer in the area when I get back, and when we're allowed to, when we're all clear that we can gather again. Because what a great way to gather is to learn about whole food plant-based eating. So
Absolutely. All right, Betsy, that sounds wonderful. You have an amazing day, and hopefully we'll do this again some other time.
I would love it.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you. Take care, Betsy.
Bye.
Bye.